Good afternoon, gentlemen. I have taken this rare opportunity for Lucy to meet with my advisors. Lucy, can you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Lucy and I have recently held the position of Secretary of Commerce.
I am going to put my cards on the table. Lucy is a little wet behind the ears. She is an idealist, and to be honest, Lucy, you were a bit of a pain in my side when I hold my cabinet meetings. You are excellent at your job, but you need to get real, and that's why I have given you the opportunity to meet with my advisors who are excellent strategists. Starting from my right and working round the table, can you please introduce yourselves to Lucy?
My name is James and I advise the President on how to manipulate the public.
My name is Bill and my strategy is to provide upbeat news in the mainstream media, despite the truly awful fundamentals.
My name is Archibald and I advise the President on financial matters.
My name is Matt and my strategy is to adjust people's expectations over time.
My name is Ted and I am responsible for drawing up plans for the civil unrest that will occur in the U.S. Lucy, I want you to look at the video screen. What do you see?
I see a chessboard with chess pieces on it.
Lucy, that is our emblem. We are strategists, and therefore we have to think strategically. Let's get down to business. James, from your analyses, do the public still think that we are in an economic recovery?
Mr. President, as you know, we are applying a process called intermittent reinforcement. That is to say, every so often we are drip-feeding good news. Therefore, over a period of time the public start to believe it. For example, Bill has been on the VI show and has been positive about the economy.
Bill, how is that process working? I find the public to be very gullible. The strategic plan to dumb down the population by the introduction of so-called reality programs has blunted the minds of many people, and therefore are less likely to be critical thinkers. However, I have been worried about VI having guests on his program such as Tony and George. They have a very good handle on what is going on, and they are trying to educate the people. James, do you think the public are waking up?
Some are, but our data suggests that there are still too many people who do not take an interest on what is really going on in our economy. We have bought some time, Mr. President.
Archibald, can you give me an update on our fiscal strategy?
Following my discussions with James, it was agreed that we needed to be vague with the messages that we sent out with regard to the economy. I would like you to have a look at the screen. We have used words such as likely, if, and expected. Ben Bernanke has delivered our message perfectly.
Archibald and James, you have played a blinder here. You have managed to convince the public that we are in recovery and got them to believe that we will taper quantitative easing should the economy continue to improve.
Thank you, Mr. President. However, as we all know, the economy is far from recovering. Indeed, we are going to enter the greatest depression ever, but at least we have bought some time.
Gold is falling significantly on the news. I would suggest that this is a good opportunity for the central banks to recapitalize on their gold holdings. We have got to remember that Germany want their gold shipping back to their country. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, the gold has been hypothecated, in other words, leased out.
I agree. We need a strategy for the central banks to recapitalize. A shortage of gold will occur during this process and gold prices will start to rise. But at least we can get hold of gold at these very low prices. Archibald, can you tell me what your intention is with regard to quantitative easing?
In the near future we will continue to give the impression that quantitative easing will be tapered, but as we all know round the table here, that is simply not an option.
Excuse me, Archibald, why is it not an option to taper quantitative easing? Surely it is the sensible thing to do.
Lucy, it may be the sensible thing to do, but it is not wise for us to taper quantitative easing because it would mean facing reality today. And do you really want an economic collapse on our watch?
Surely if we delay reality by the continuation of quantitative easing, matters will be dreadful later on.
Lucy, we have already planned for the economic collapse. Ted can give you an update on this. Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, you signed into law on the 31st of December 2011 the National Defense Authorization Act, You now have the powers to detain any U.S. citizen indefinitely without the right to have legal representation should you consider them to be a threat. Of course, officially, we will state that the powers are there to protect us against terrorism. However, in reality it will be used to control the U.S. population when civil unrest becomes an issue, and it will. James, how is the strategy coming on with regard to taking the focus off the southern Mediterranean countries?
Okay, let me try this acid test. Lucy, what is happening in the southern Mediterranean countries?
I don't know. There has not been much in the news recently.
I rest my case. All is going to plan. The public are not worried about the dreadful financial position in these countries. The power of the media is truly awesome. We can focus on issues at will.
The manipulation of the public in this way is dreadful. It is scary how you all can be so calculating.
As I said before, Lucy, get real. This is life, and this is the way it has always been.
Mr. President, the template in Cyprus has gone well. I would suggest that we roll it out in the US. As you know, the banks are likely to collapse in the near future. This time we cannot offer the troubled asset relief program, and therefore the bailing program needs to be instigated.
I agree, Archibald. Can you please provide a draft plan for me by October of this year? Matt, how do you think the public will act to this change?
My data suggests that the public will not provide much of a resistance if we apply the same strategy as was tried out in Cyprus. That is to say, we hit them with the news that all bank deposits will have a levy imposed, no matter what amount of money is deposited with them. After that initial announcement, we will drip feed slightly better news.
James, from your point of view, do you still think that the public are locked into their normalcy bias?
Our data suggests that this is so, and there would need to be a significant deterioration in their standard of living before any riots take place.
Mr. President, that is why we need to change people's expectations incrementally. May I suggest that we continue with intermittent reinforcement on the good news front, whilst at the same time drip feed the occasional bad news. This will leave the public rather confused, and this will allow us to buy some time. Mr. President, you know the strategy is called boiling the lobster slowly.
Ted, how much time do you think we have got before matters get out of hand? Within the next year, the public will wake up to the fact that there is no economic recovery and will be angry. However, many are too fat and lazy to put up any real resistance. However, we have got to remember that quantitative easing has delayed a much worse problem down the road. The $85 billion per month translates to $32,256 per second. We also have to remember that the debt ceiling issue has not been addressed. Looking at the current trends, I would estimate that major civil unrest will occur within 3 years' time. The projections suggest that there will be protests initially, followed by riots and eventually a revolution. By then, the government will have the necessary procedures in place to deal with any major disturbances.
As Gerald Slante would say, when people lose everything, and there is nothing left to lose, they lose it.
Thank you, gentlemen, and Lucy. I hope that you will consider the difficult issues I have to face. It is not easy pretending that everything is okay when I address the public.